All right, we are now joined by Danielle Boiago, who is currently the McMaster women's basketball lead assistant coach. Had a glowing playing career also at McMaster in the university ranks, was an OUA player of the year, also a DPOY, defensive player of the year in the same season with the Mamba mentality there, playing both ends of the floor. Ultimately led her to be a two-time All-Canadian, a Usports National Player of the Year, and moving into the coaching ranks at McMaster has also continued to excel and currently assists Victor Razzo and the Niagara River Lions in the CEBL, our Canadian Men's Domestic Professional League. What a career and what a start to your coaching career. Great to have you here, Danielle. Happy
Thanks
to chat. Yeah.
Thanks for having me on. Always love chatting basketball.
Yeah, no doubt. You guys ended up winning a playoff game this year against the Waterloo Warriors, which I spend an enormous amount of time on the men's side working with. But let's get into the real meat and potatoes here. You guys actually had a really tough loss to the Warriors in regular season, and then you were able to right the ship in the playoffs.
This is what we want to open with.
I'm coming hard. Like I'm not settling us in. Like let's just get with the business here.
Yeah.
And talk about it. I mean, it's pretty awesome. I love that because, and I say this to people all the time. I said this about Carleton when Carleton lost to Queens on the men's side. I said right when that happened that night, I was doing an interview with Jeremy Kayeye, and I told him Carleton will win the national championship.
Yeah.
Because the juice. I call it the juice. When you have a bad loss, that's when you play your best often, because when your back's against the wall and you're pissed off, you got something to play for. There's a little extra stuff there. And I'm sure that was motivation coming back to the playoff. And Jessica, her and I have a great relationship, so she's fine about us talking about it. So let's get into it. It's one of the great parts of our game, the bounce back.
We can get into it for sure. So we ended up playing Waterloo 4 times, just the way the OUA West East was separated this year.
Yeah.
We played them once in preseason, twice in the regular season. Then we got them in the first round of playoffs not long after we just, like you had mentioned so kindly, lost to them in the regular season. So our mentality with our team and going into those is like, it's really hard to beat a team 3-4 times in one season.
Sure.
And we had so much film on them. We knew their personnel like that, right? So for us, it was just making a couple small adjustments going into that playoff game and just really trusting that our girls knew exactly what the game plan was and what needed to be done. So it was a tough couple ups and downs this season, but it was nice to get that playoff win on the road at Waterloo against your girl Jess. We have a good relationship too. Jess is awesome. So I'm really so happy for her with what she's able to do with that program in her first couple years. So exciting things ahead for that program for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Consistency as a player is totally different than trying to get consistency out of your team as a coach. It's so challenging. Like, as a player, it's hard enough to just like build that resilience and that mental toughness to be able to, under adversity and changing variables, perform every single night with the lights on. What are some of the things now that you're in the coaching position that challenge you to get your team to be consistent? And maybe what's something that, like, when you were a player, you anchored to? Like, I used to eat a Snickers while I was getting my ankles taped, and that was kind of my moment of like, like it's time to go to war, like last meal, like last thing, like let's go play. Ultimately I wasn't that great at it because maybe I'd be playing still, but let's get into that a little bit, like player consistency versus coach consistency.
Yeah, honestly, I tell people all the time, I get more nervous as a coach than I would as a player.
Yeah.
My first year as an assistant coach at MAC was actually our national championship year where we won nationals. And I was losing it on the bench. Like I could not sit still because as a player, you're so used to like having control of situations and you're on the court and you're maybe a little bit nervous at the beginning, but as soon as you step on the court, everything goes away. Right. Yeah. As a coach, you're on the bench the whole time. So you're just losing your mind constantly, no control. But I would say that for me personally as a player, it was always like headphones in, music on the bus. That kind of helped with, like getting into game mode, that consistency. With our athletes, it's tough because there's all different, I don't know, you're trying to bring in together all different types of people, all different learning styles. And you have to find what works best for each athlete. So what worked for me was like, I needed quiet. I needed to be away from people. I needed my headphones in. Doesn't work for a lot of the girls on our team. If you're on our team bus before the game, it's like they're playing music, like they're dancing, they're singing. And all of our other coaching staff always looks at me and laughs because they're like, you would have never been up dancing. I would have been like front of the bus, like not talking to anyone. But that just goes with coaching, right? Like you learn different things work for different athletes, and you just kind of figure out what works best for each one, and you help them to become the best that they can be with whatever that might look like. So very different as a player and a coach, but very fortunate to have that like playing experience so that I can bring that in and help some of our girls along for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Player rituals, I guess you would call it, like how we prepare to play. Were you always like that? Like, let's go back to like, I love going right back to the beginning, like your first game in little jumpers or little NBA. Like, were you like off to the side, like freaking out? Like, what am my mom, dad, like get me out of here? And then like all of a sudden you went out and you were like killing it. And it's like, oh, actually this is awesome. Like, how did you start? Where did basketball start for you?
Yeah, so I started playing when I was 4. So I got into it quite young. I have an older brother who played and played with our Blessed Sacrament in Hamilton, that club team. I watched him play and I told my parents I wanted to play. So they put me in basketball, and then obviously have been playing ever since until I stopped a couple years back. But I don't quite remember how I was. I probably didn't take it as seriously as I obviously did in university. I'm quite like an introverted person, I would say. Like I like my own space, especially before a competition like that. But probably started more in university. I think in high school, because it was a little bit more relaxed. There wasn't as much pressure on me to perform. It was like you're just having fun with your friends. It's probably into more of like the pump up pregame stuff. But as I got into university, I was very much like into myself. That's what I needed to be able to perform for our team. So yeah, definitely probably wasn't always like that, but lucky that my parents put me into basketball so young, because I feel like I had a little bit of advantage over others in terms of playing for so long.
Yeah, for sure. And you're at the powerhouse, Blessed Sacrament, Yellow Jackets, right? Is that what you guys are?
Yeah, that's what we are. So in Hamilton, we're so lucky, like as females, girl basketball players growing up, you had 2 great teams, right? There's Hamilton Transway.
Yeah.
And then there's Blessed Sacrament. Because it was my brother that kind of got me into basketball. He played Blessed. Obviously, there's no Transway for boys. So my parents put me in Blessed, and then I just kind of rode that wave ever since, ever through. So
yeah, that's awesome. I've convened a few U10 girls tournaments because fundraising or Basketball Ontario, whatever. Like those tournaments are wild,
right?
Like they're nonstop energy and enthusiasm and cheering, and like the parents, like the dads. I love the dads. I'm a father now. I have 2 young kids. Like I have a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. So like when I was commuting in turns, I didn't have kids. So I'd look at the parents and I couldn't get it. I just didn't understand. I'm like, dads are out there like feet stomping, like full clap, like leading the chant, like, and I'm like, man, like,
committed.
Yeah, and like yelling at the like 9-year-old like Tiffany, like get up, like play like a champion. I'm just like, yo, like chill out. Like, now I have kids and I'm like, okay, yeah, like you just love them.
I'm that dad. You're that dad now.
I'm not going to be that guy. I don't think. I mean, I'm pretty enthusiastic, but I get it. You got the rose-colored glasses on. So do you remember those times? Are they vivid? Like, do you have friends still that you played on those teams with? Like, is there a story of when like one of the girls like, ate too much candy and puked on the bench, or like what happened back then? It must have been awesome. Like,
oh my gosh, so many, so many memories of playing rep basketball growing up. Honestly, one of my most vivid memories is our OBAs, for some reason, were always in London. Yeah. And I don't know if you still have it, if it's still open, the Lamplighter Inn.
Oh yeah.
But it had a water slide. And so it was always like, we're going to OBAs, like basketball wasn't important. It was like, we're going on the water slide after the
Right.
game. Like, we're all going to stay up so late. And then obviously we have a game the next day, but who cares about basketball at that point?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that lamplighter in, for some reason, like OVAs was that weekend every year, and so much fun. But yeah, the best memories growing up were like staying in the hotel.
Yeah.
Even with my brothers, and they played hockey growing up, it was like always playing mini sticks in the hotel, like in the hallways.
Sure.
and things like that. Not a whole lot of like actual basketball memories,
Right.
which is fitting, right? Because the things that you remember most are the relationships, the people that you play with, the stories, those memories that live on forever. So yeah, so many great times. And I honestly remember some of those cheers. Like I'm not going to, but I could chant them.
Oh, I thought maybe you
and there's the
jump
claps
in
that
there.
go with it. There's
Oh, yeah.
the stomps. I
I
played
like
soccer.
the call and answer ones where the girls yell out to the parents and then the parents yell back and the girls answer them like,
so great, such good
yeah.
energy. And you talk about like everyone, and we'll probably get to it, like the difference between coaching men and women.
Yeah.
Probably similar at that age too. Like girls and boys were so different in the way they just like
Sure.
are on the bench. And what I was gonna say though is I also played soccer growing up, and there was this tradition after soccer games where you would make like a little tunnel at the end of the game for the other team to run through, and then your team would run through the tunnel after. And it was just
Sure.
like, we just beat you guys, or you just beat us. Like, why are we getting along after the games? But
Yeah,
it's just youth sports. So much fun, so many good memories.
I really love that you made it to the highest level and you don't give a rip about the basketball memories from those times. I wish more, like, that's like a great PSA for parents. Like, just have perspective on this. Like, your girl could get to professional basketball and she's going to look back and remember this other stuff, not that she missed the layup or that, their team lost and you're the one that's pissed off about it. Like,
yeah, I think that's so important for parents to understand in this kind of day and age that we're in with the prep school, which obviously there's so many great things about it, but there's so much pressure on these kids from such a young age.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's the parents that's pushing that too, right?
For
At the end
sure.
of the day, they're still kids. They need to grow up. They need to have fun experiences with their friends. And if I can pass along any message, it would be to, like, let them have fun, let them grow up, let them figure out if basketball is for them or if it's for the parents, right? Because that often ends up being the parents' dream and maybe sometimes not the kids' dream.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that stuff is so important.
Yeah, no, that's a great message. And like, the more you coach, the more you see the different player personalities, and like the old adage, like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Like, there's a lot of similarities between parents and kids, but the kids really have a chance to be different, and you got to let them explore and go through it. And we have some of the best coaching in the world here in Canada, albeit primarily volunteer based still at this point. And so you get a lot of parents, and maybe, parents here and there do have a little nepotism, or they play their little player a little more, or they have favorite, whatever, like, but just the overall experience for everyone, and keeping that perspective that, it's about their journey and it's about them learning difficult lessons, and it's controlled adversity. And there's not a lot of places where we can provide that for youth anymore. So yeah, I love that you have a similar thought process there and go through that. So U10 quickly turns into like Jewel, U16 Jewel. Like, are you guys Jewel at that point? Like,
yeah. So
and it's like wild. It's like really competitive.
My year, I think I played Jewel 2 years, grade 11 and grade 12. And that was like the beginning of Jewel. We were the first kind of group to go through Jewel. So at that point, high school basketball was really big. I went to St. Thomas More powerhouse basketball school in Hamilton. So we would have our high school season regular from September to whenever, November, and then we'd move into our Jewel season December to April.
Right.
And yeah, so at that point, like, I will say that's kind of when basketball started getting serious for me. Grade 9 and 10, you kind of start to decide, like, am I going the soccer route? Am I going the basketball route? Can I do more than one sport? Is that even going to be feasible right now? So yeah, like, basketball started being like, this could actually be something that I do in university at that point. And like I said, like, high school was, we had a super competitive, I played at STM, we had a super competitive team, but we also played other sports too. So in high school, it wasn't just basketball, it was soccer, volleyball, track, you're kind of dipping your feet into everything. And that also made that whole experience so great as well. So I would recommend, I always say this, like if you can play multi-sport, if you can be a multi-sport athlete and play more than one and not just basketball from 4 to whenever, like I'm all for that, because there's so many skills and things that you learn from other sports too that actually help you in basketball later down the line. So but yeah, Jewel was great. Jewel was like super, super competitive because it was kind of the first like elite league that we had in Ontario before the OSBA started. So lots of good memories from that too, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge believer in multi-sport development. Like, that's a hard line for me. I think that's got to be that way. On the guys' side, I think until you're about 16. And give or take like what you're at with your physical maturity level and mental emotional maturity level, as well as your talent. If you're 14 and we all can tell you've got a real good chance to make it to the NBA, there may be some more stuff you need to, let go and focus more on basketball. But that's like an extreme outlier. Same with
those are exceptions, right?
Yeah,
like
unicorn stuff. Like the best place for you to be, even if you're like really good and you're on a track to play university or earn a scholarship, I think the best place for you to be is at home, with your family, with your support network. You'll build the resilience there, and the cost benefit of like leaving home at that age to play better competition, I don't know that it pays off in the long run. Is it the same with girls? Is it at that same sort of age time limit where you have to really focus in, or?
Yeah, there's obviously not the like NBA dream like there is on the men's side. I would say now though that the WNBA is becoming more popular and girls are actually having the opportunity to watch WNBA games on TSN or on Sportsnet or whatever on Canadian television.
Yeah.
That dream is starting to become more of a reality. Like young girls can see that and see like, wow, I might be able to actually make a living playing basketball. Obviously not the same type of living as on the men's side. But I do think that with the prep schools, like it's kind of, you're at that point where you have to decide, like, do I want to play against the best players, the best teams in the province? And you have to make that decision that's best for you, for your family. It's tough now because you go to high school games and it's kind of like watered down, right? Like all of the best players have left. So if you also don't leave, then you're kind of falling behind in that sense where you're not getting that same competition in practice every day like you would be if you're at a prep school. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it's a decision that I never had to make growing up because there wasn't that option. I mean, some people would go to the States for prep school, but not as many girls as boys would.
Right.
So yeah, like there's so many pros to that type of system where like you're getting sport specific strength and conditioning training that I wasn't getting when I was just a regular high school kid. You're competing against some of the best players in our province, which ends up being the best players in our country. So yeah, so many great things that are coming out of Ontario in terms of the basketball side of things. And obviously that's just going to keep elevating the game in Canada.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this. I partnered with Rob Angione and we founded Southwest Academy. That was 6 years ago. It wasn't the first prep program in the country by any means, but it was still early back then, right? Like we're kind of now hit this explosion of like this is become the norm, but it wasn't back then. And I've had this discussion with so many people, and I was like public enemy number one. I was like, you're ruining high school basketball. And my argument to that was like, because my position now more than ever, and at the time I was in this position, but I didn't realize how to really help impact it, was to grow the game. We have to change. We can't grow and add more participants, create coaching jobs, and ultimately grab the attention of corporate Canada and the rest of the country without changing and adapting to what we do. And my argument was, okay, yes, the better players are leaving the high school program to go to prep, but every high school cuts kids. So those kids that got cut before now have an opportunity to be on the high school team. And why are we not giving those kids the same experience as the other kids, just simply because the product on the floor isn't the same quality? you said yourself, like, I'm going to remember the hotel. I'm going to remember the officer trip. Like, I'm not going to remember, like, my coach had a big ego and was like, oh, we're really fucking good. And I've got 9 guys that are going to go to university. Like, the kids need to play. And I think it's more important for the kids that were getting cut back in the day to have that high school experience and that structure and that daily practice, and that then it is the better player. The better player's already got those skills. That's why he's a better player. So I think we just need to have different levels and be okay with different levels. And high school is not what it used to be, but it should still operate and provide those experiences to kids in those situations.
Yeah, I've never seen it that way, but you're right. That's
Hot take, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're in the storm for 6 years and you just get beat up and you finally build some resilience and can actually formulate a sentence that makes any sense. Yeah, that's how I feel about it, but it is what it is. And then when do you start to get recruited? Like, what's it like at that point? Like, are coaches at all your games? Are you like a blue chip? Like, did a John Deere tractor show up at your house from like North Carolina State and they're like, come to our spot? Like, how did it go with you?
Well, I was lucky because I had Kia Nurse on my high school team.
Okay.
That brought in quite a few coaches.
Yes.
But I decided early that I was going to stay in Canada. I decided probably just as the beginning of my grade 11 year, that I was going to stay in Canada. Just for me, it made sense with my size. I'm only 5'7". Academically, I wanted a good school. I wanted to play. Like I just at that point just loved playing, and I didn't want to go somewhere and sit on the bench for a couple of years. I wanted to go somewhere and have an immediate impact. So that was important for me. So when I decided in grade 11 I was going to kind of stick around in Canada, I didn't end up writing my SATs. And that's kind of when a lot of Canadian schools started reaching out to me.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was just kind of looking at my core values, my priorities, and that was getting a good education. And I ended up taking kinesiology, so looking for schools that also had that program. So yeah, I went through the process, went through visits. It's a stressful time for grade 11, grade 12 students who like are first trying to figure out what do you want to do when you grow up, because you're supposed to decide in grade 11, clearly, apparently.
Yeah.
And then
for the rest of your life too, for the rest of your life.
Yeah, for the rest of your life, you're going to decide your career right now.
Yeah. Like, no, thanks.
Yeah. And then also just like, do I want to move away from home? Do I want to, I don't know, like, do I want to stay at home? And I'm obviously a Hamilton kid. So that grade 11 year, when I was kind of making the decision, it was like, I want to get out of Hamilton. I think I need that away experience. And then for me, as I was looking through universities, I was going on my visits, I kind of realized like everything that I wanted in a school was actually in MAC in my hometown, with the good academics. It was a strong basketball program, great coach under Teresa Burns. So I made the decision to stay home and be the hometown kid. And it benefited me. Like, clearly I'm working at McMaster to this day. So it's probably the best decision I've ever made. But just to be able to look into the stands and see my grandparents, my Nona, my family, my friends, like every single game, there was somebody in that crowd that I knew. Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the benefit of that. Like, you have a good game, you have a bad game, your family, your friends are always there for you. Yeah. And I think a lot of kids get this dream of like going NCAA, and like if you're Kia Nurse, if you're Aaliyah Edwards, if you're those top tier kids, like you got to go to the UConns, you got to go to the South Carolinas.
Yeah.
But if you're in that like middle lower pack and you're thinking like, well, I'm just going to go D1 because that's the dream. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of living proof that you don't have to go to D1 and have a successful career and get into coaching if that's something that you're interested in. So yeah, like I will always be an advocate for Usports because I had such a great experience. And I'll answer any questions anyone has about Usports, but I think it was the best decision for me to not only stay home at McMaster, but to decide to stay in Canada early so that I could go through all of my options, do all of my research. And it wasn't a last minute decision. I had kind of planned things out from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so great that you were able to find that clarity and know yourself. Like, your self-awareness is high to understand that, like, my family is really important. It means something that Nona's at the game, and it will help me, be the best version of myself to be in that community environment that I've kind of been in, my whole life. And I think what people don't realize, and I tried to express this to, kids that we would help at Southwest make decisions and go to the next level is like the basketball, the academic, and the social is just one part of it. You have to look at like where you're actually living. Like there's socioeconomical impacts, like guys that want to move to Texas and go D1 in Texas. It's like, do you know what like the values are like in Texas and like how they treat people or how they deal with things? And like, are you okay with that? And then also the other element that kids don't ever think about is like where you get your degree is where you start to build your network. Well, you do all that work, you build your degree, you make all these friends and all these relationships in Texas, and then you come home to Toronto. Nobody knows you don't. You're back to zero. Like your network doesn't exist there except for the people you knew before you left. So I went out of province. I went to the University of Alberta Augustana faculty, which was a college team, and I got a University of Alberta physical education degree. But then I came home and like, it's like you got to start over again. Like all of those relationships are built, and it's like you're right back to zero. So it's good that you were able to have that self-awareness to stay close to home.
Yeah. And that doesn't work for everyone. And that's not fit for everyone. And that's why I'm such a big advocate of like finding the fit, right? It's all of these great schools are coming and talking to you. And it's like, yeah, but do you see yourself there? Do they even have the program that you want to study? And obviously being an assistant coach at a university, like recruiting is one of my main jobs. So a lot of these conversations that I'm having with kids is like, I can share my own experience with them and share how well it's worked out for me. And I'm not oblivious. I know that doesn't work out for everyone, and staying home isn't an option for everyone. But just to be able to share my recruiting experience, I think is super helpful for those kids that are maybe being pulled the D1 route, but like aren't necessarily sold or maybe not good enough to go that way.
Yeah. I bet you there was some hype around you making your debut at McMaster. Do you remember your first bucket, or your first game, memory from your first game at all? Like any of that?
Not my first home game. I remember my first ever game was at Algoma because that was because that was their first year coming into our league, and they like flew us out there to make for a preseason game. Yeah. So I remember, and we just got a Jordan sponsorship that year at Mac. Nice. So we had like laid out our Jordan jerseys on the hotel room bed, and like we're taking pictures of the jerseys and stuff. Like I remember that as my first game. I can't remember my first game at Mac, but I guess when you get older, they just kind of all start blurring together, and then you have the coaching games on top of that too. But still to this day, I will always say Burridge Gym at McMaster is the best shooters gym there is like in the country. We have shooters, or we have other teams come into our gym and like shoot the lights out because it's such a good shooters gym. Other players will admit that too. I'm not just biased.
I'm a crazy coach. My immediate instinct there was like, defense was bad. They're making shots because the defense was bad. Like, it's like you can never like give anyone their due. Like, I missed because the defense was good. I made it because the defense was bad. Like, it was just a good shot. Like, you just made the shot. It's okay.
Sometimes the offense is just better than the defense.
Yeah. You did what you could there. You did exactly what we asked you to do. He just made a play. It's okay. Next play. Let's move on.
Yeah, especially if they're following the scout, you got to just take one on that. Like, coach, I was doing what you told me to do. It's like, you're right.
Yeah. Next. One of your co-coaches, I guess maybe people don't know, but you're going to be one of the prospect game coaches at the Pro Canadian Invitational this year. And one of the co-coaches that will be also in that role, Mike DiGiorgio, when we had our conversation, his Royal Crown team anchored on, can you beat our game plan over 40 minutes? We're going to stick to the fact that, our scout is our scout, and you're going to make a couple threes. We're not changing. We're going to be consistent for 40 minutes, and we're going to stick to it. And if you beat us against our plan, then you beat us. And they were basically undefeated. I think they lost 1 or 2 games this year. So, there's so many different ways to approach it. But
for sure.
I mean, what's your philosophy on that? Like, you talk about adjustments in game. That's everyone's favorite criticism I find of coaches now, is that like when you lose, it's the coach didn't make any adjustments. Like he wasn't able to catch it mid game, figure out what it was, teach me how to do it. Then I execute it perfectly as he told me to do it. What a crappy coach. Like, is it game plan or is it adjustments?
Well, I think it starts with your base. Like you have to have really strong fundamentals, and what we do at MAC, our fundamentals versus what we do at the Riverlines is completely different because we base it around our athletes and what suits the structure of our team. But when you have strong fundamentals to begin with, then when you add the game plan on top of that, like they should be solid. So if athletes are making a mistake based on our fundamentals, like that's when we have a real problem, because that's something that we talk about. That's something that's usually co-created with the athletes before like season even starts in September. Those are the expectations that they know that our fundamentals on defense are this is what we're getting to on offense, and those are strong. Now, when we're talking about a game plan, and like we talked about earlier, the Waterloo thing, when we knew their scout, we knew their personnel like back of our hands, those are the things where if a player forgets something that's on the scout, that's frustrating as a coach. And you probably know that too. It's like, we've gone through this, we've watched video, like you have the scout on your phone, you could have been looking at it on the bus ride on the way to the gym. But those are things where there's clearly a disconnect then. Like as a coach, you have to go through your mind and think like, well, why aren't they understanding the scout? Is it because I didn't present it properly enough? Is it because there's something to do with the language that they don't understand? Because obviously a student athlete isn't going to go out there and purposely forget the scout.
Yeah.
So in the middle of a game, obviously you can lose your mind. But it's important to take that step back and realize like, why aren't they doing what we're asking them to do? And usually it's because either we haven't taught it properly or they just don't understand what they're asking them to do. So that's where as a coach, you kind of have to go back to the drawing board and think like, what does this one particular student athlete need from me in order for them to be able to understand what we're asking them? In terms of in-game adjustments, we'll make some. Again, we don't like to stray from our fundamentals, especially because that's something that's so solid, and that's something that's been built throughout the season. Like I talked about, if it's something where like we're getting killed on a ball screen or whatever is happening to us in transition, we got to change something up, we might do it at like a halftime or like a quarter break. But if it's something that our team hasn't seen before, it's usually tough to throw something in like that. So usually it would have had to been something that we practiced in preparation of maybe throwing it in. But yeah, I know it's always the coach's fault, eh? Like when adjustments aren't made, it's like, well, you should have done this. It's like, okay, but you weren't in practice with this all week, so you don't really know what the game plan was. But yeah.
Yeah. One of my faults is actually taking responsibility for everything. Like my leadership style is like, no matter what happens, I'm the leader, so it was my fault. Like I didn't teach it properly, or I put you in that position. And like, that's not reality. It's got me into more trouble than it has good in a lot of cases. So I have to learn to like, delegate the responsibility to people, but I just want to will us to victory. Like I want it so bad. It's like, I'm going to take on all the responsibility. That's why I say it's a fault. But I'm growing that way as a coach myself. So, and people adjustments, like it could be as simple as like, we're switching the ball screen. Now we're going to go under on it. Now we're going to hedge hard, or we're going to trap, and people, I think the casual fan thinks adjustments is like something that's going to change the entirety of the game. It's like, no, it could get us one turnover, or it could get us a stop, or, if it's a good one, it gets us a 3-stop, a turkey or a kill or whatever you call it.
And sometimes that's all you need, right?
Yeah.
You just need that change of momentum, that change of pace, that
totally
spark. Yeah. So ball screen defense is probably one of the things that you can do the easiest, I guess, in terms of making adjustments. Like if you have more than one ball screen coverage in your repertoire, that's something that we like to do at MAC. If the way we're covering ball screens isn't working, like we have a couple others that we'll go to. Maybe throwing in a 2-3 zone for a couple possessions if they're not shooting well that night. And if it works for us, like if it works for us for 2 possessions, that's a win for us, right? So it's little things like that. It's the game within the game that obviously a fan or someone watching that's not part of the program isn't really going to understand what's happening. But coaches watching film know, they can see what you're throwing at the other team. And so obviously our job as coaches, and like you said, sometimes you kind of take things upon yourself. I'm also a teacher, I'm an educator as well. So for me, I always look back to like, well, why, like, what did I do that makes them not understand it, right? But you also have to give them that autonomy. You have to empower them to be able to make those decisions on the fly, to know that they've they've learned it enough, or you've taught it to them enough that they should be making those decisions. And then obviously there's longer ropes, right? Like you have your 5th-year athlete.
Sure.
And you have your 1st-year athlete, and your 1st-year athlete is going to make so many more mistakes than your 5th-year one. And you gotta kind of give them a little bit more rope than you would your 5th years who should know better. Yeah. So that's all part of it too.
Yeah. The push pull and understanding how to deliver the correction too. That's a hard one. You know, some guys like to get yelled at. Some guys need a hug. Figuring that out is challenging.
And you know what? When you talk about that, like giving feedback,
yeah,
the men and women's game is so different for that.
Right.
And that's probably one of the biggest differences, I guess, whenever people ask me, like between River Lions and Mac. Yeah. And girls don't seem to take criticism as well as men do. Right. And I don't know if that's just the nature, like their competitive nature, or what it is. But with our River Lions guys, like you can tell them straight up things, and like, yeah, they might bark back at you, but they respect you enough to know you know what you're talking about. Right. And they'll take it, right? Like with our women's game, it's like you have to kind of figure out how you're going to tell them without making them feel like you're attacking them. And that obviously is just another part of coaching. It's like, what does each player need from you? How can you talk to each player and get the most out of them through that feedback?
Yeah, and I think that's what obviously Vic and others have seen in you, is that you're confident in the game. So gender doesn't matter. You know, if it's you play the ball screen, you play the ball screen. Like this is how we defend, this is how we play, this is our options, this is our set. So it's really awesome to see you have success on the guys' side as well as the women's side. And I think they'll both serve you well, because lessons you learn over there can help you, you know, over here. And, you know, I think it's a different game. I don't think that there's any argument in how it's athletically played. But the core values of what we're trying to accomplish are the same. You know, it's trying to get people to come together, to put themselves behind to the group success, and ultimately execute as a team better than the opponent. Yeah. Right?
At the end, I always tell people at the end of the day, it's basketball, right? Like I don't think our River Lions guys see me as a female coach. Like they call me coach. Yeah. And I think that sometimes the media and outside noise makes a bigger deal of a woman coaching a men's sport, because it's new, it's different. Sure. But like the true athletes, the true people involved in our programs, like they just know it's your coach, it's part of the game. If you prove, and like it's all about building trust, obviously that's so important, but if you prove to them that you've done the work, that you know what you know, that you've taken the time to get to know them, they've taken the time to get to know you, it's just another coach player relationship. It's not, that's my female coach, right? So it's great in Canada, and obviously in the States too, in the NBA, like we're getting away from it kind of being like a one-off. Like it's starting to become more and more prevalent. It's starting to become the norm, which is great. So hopefully we can continue to trend in that direction. I just firm believer in, if someone's deserving of the job, of the role, then they should get it, no matter the gender.
I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. And it's great to see that being more prevalent across all sports, not just basketball, which is really, really great to see. We're like right into the coaching stuff here. We glanced right over the playing career. Like there were some really high moments there, but obviously, you know, you're super passionate about the coaching. But did this all happen like immediately? Like you graduated, the plan was already in place. Teresa is the coach at Mac now still that you're working for. Was that just like, congratulations, here's your degree, the office is down the hall?
No. So as I was kind of getting down into my 4th and 5th year at Mac, and like obviously being a point guard, I feel like you kind of have those coach instincts on the court. So in the back of my mind, I was always thinking like, I think I could coach. Like I think I could see that in my future. But I was also interested in playing still. So I actually went overseas for a little bit, and I played in the Netherlands. Okay. And then as I was overseas and I wasn't enjoying it, and I'm a big planner. So I was in constant conversation with Teresa, my head coach. And I was like, okay, listen, like if I were to come home, would there be a spot for me on the bench? Because I needed to have that, like, okay, I don't want to lose basketball completely. I need to have something in place if I were to decide to come home. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. Like we had kind of already talked about me coaching after playing and things like that. So I played for that first, like I took that first year off after graduating. And then when I came back to Mac, I was on the staff. I was assistant coach that year. And I was doing teachers college at the same time. So I was just kind of in like a volunteer assistant coach role throughout teachers college.
Yeah.
That was a couple of years ago. And then I was, hired on as our lead assistant coach. So, oh my gosh, I'm living a dream. Like it honestly feels like it's not even real life. I just love what I do so much. And I hope that everybody can find that, because I know when I talk to people, they're like, wow, you're really, really lucky to love your job. But it's just the people, like, it's the people that make the job. And it's working with the student athletes every day. And it's seeing first years actually get so much better, and then seeing them off into graduation. It's like, wow, you really do have an impact on so many people. And I think that's what I love. Obviously the basketball side and the X's and O's, but getting to help develop some great student athletes along the way is probably the best part so far for me.
Yeah. And I always say luck's not enough. Like, let's be real here. You created an opportunity for you to experience a job you love because you put the time in, you put the work in, you were passionate about it, and you made it happen. And that's a message I try to share with people who want to make a change in their life, or they want to go after something, but they're scared to do it. And they, or they think that, okay, I'm going to go for it and they're going to get it in a year. Like, it doesn't work like that. It can, it's possible, but if you're not convicted about what you're going to be passionate about and what you want to do, and you're willing to do it, no matter what the circumstances are, it's never, ever going to really materialize into that perfect situation where you love what you do, you have autonomy of what you do, and you get to live out your passion. It takes work, and you have to work hard to get it. And you did that. And so, credit to you for earning a life of passion, a life of love. And it's still very early in your career, and hopefully you stay that way. I know when I started coaching, I was chomping at the bit, and I was, I'd do whatever I took. I was so into it, and you get worn down because it's hard to be, at that level all the time. And there's so many different emotional ups and downs in what we do, because we truly love it. It's like, I remember this was a breakthrough moment for me. I was working in a sales job, and the owner of the company's sister was another sales associate, and she really loved what she did. She was really passionate about growing the business, and she got a deal one day. We were in the board, and she got a deal on the phone, and she started crying. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, and she was like, I've been working so hard on that, and I'm so happy that I got that deal. And I realized at that moment, like, I will never feel this way about sales. I should not be here. It doesn't matter to me. And where does it, coaching, I feel that way. I've cried over coaching before, like giving it my all and like just feeling completely exhausted at the end and like emotionally drained because I literally put everything I could into it. So I think if you can find something that you're willing to put everything into, and whether you win or lose, you're going to get back up the next day and come back and do it again, or whether it pays you $5, $0, or $100,000, you're going to get up and come back and do the same thing over and over and over again, then you'll find your passion, and ultimately money will follow you. You'll be able to make a living. You won't live on the street. Your hard work will pay off. It's going to be okay. But it's a tough journey.
Yeah, for sure. And I would add to that too, like, find someone that believes in you and like believes in your passion and believes in your vision. And for me, that's obviously Coach like Teresa Burns. And I had no coaching experience. I had coached I had run our summer camp at Mac when I was an athlete. And we had just developed such a good relationship, player coach, like point guard, but also coach on the court when I was playing, to we could just kind of understand what each other was thinking in those moments, especially in my 5th year as a veteran. So to develop that relationship with her, and then to know she would want me on her staff right away as soon as I was finished playing, was I don't get where I am right now without her giving me that start and believing in me, even though I really hadn't had any experience. And that's just surrounding yourself with people that like believe in you and like I said, share that vision with you. And now she's like giving me like full reign to help out with the program and make changes and help her and, you know, like continue to build our program to hopefully another national championship. But one of the other things that I've learned throughout coaching in general, and obviously my career has not been very long, but it's so important to be yourself. And I remember at the beginning thinking like, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm so different than coach. Like we are just completely different people. Yeah. That's why it works. She's always like to me, D, I don't want another myself. Like I don't need another Teresa. I need you to be you and to bring what you bring, because us together is so much stronger than you trying to be like me. And that's not you. Yeah. And I think that's a common mistake of young coaches is like watching the NBA or watching Usports, NCAA, whatever, and finding a coach that they like. And then just trying to be like that coach. So like the players know you're faking it. You know, you're faking it. That's never going to work out for you. So that's probably the best piece of advice I could give is just be who you are and you're going to be successful in what you do.
Yeah. I think like that might be your superpower. Your self-awareness is like awesome. And you can tell when we talk about all the way up through, like there was always that awareness of yourself. And that's amazing. I think like there's a lot of insecurity in coaching, you know, just the nature of the way it is. And it's hard to truly believe you can be yourself and win, because what we all do is we look at the people who won and then we try to replicate what they did, right? Mm-hmm. I bet you every program in the country from the guys' side at some point.
Women's too, Dave Smart.
I was just going to say, mention Carleton in one of their practices. This is what they do. We've got to be prepared for that. Yeah. You know, I doubt anyone, aside from specific game prep, mentioned, 40 of the other 50 some odd programs in the country. So yeah, you got to be yourself. I mean, obviously tactically you can learn from success, like see like the pieces that are being set and how they're utilizing them. But, and this is another thing I've grown to hate about coaches, and myself included, is we take a play from someone, we try to execute it with our team, and it doesn't work the same. Well, it's the player's fault. Like that play works for them. Why doesn't it work for us? It's like, well, you got to fit your strengths with your group, and you got to put your stuff in that works for your team, not just this is a great play, it's going to work for us. Now, some of them do, but you can't just grab and put it in your place and make it work like it does where it's successful elsewhere. So
yeah, if you could do that, then anyone could be a coach, right? Like anyone can watch YouTube clips for a whole night and go to the practice the next day and say, okay, we're doing this. But like that isn't floppy again. Yeah. No, it's so true. It's so true. And then people think how like coaching is so easy, right? Like just go on YouTube and you're set.
Yeah.
Does it work that way?
It's a job everybody thinks they can do.
It's true.
Meanwhile, I've been coaching for 17 years, Danielle, and I think it's harder than I've ever thought it has been. The more I learn, the more I'm like, oh my God.
You don't know. The more you know, the more you don't know.
Yeah. When I didn't know anything, I was like, let's go. We're playing this way. We're doing this. We're doing that. Like now I know I'm like, oh my God, like we got to figure out what we're going to do here. We got to keep it simple. We got to communicate clearly. Like there's a lot that we got to teach.
Yeah, it's true. Oh. Honestly, when we won, so in I was talking to you about 2019 was our first ever national championship at Mac. And that was just like such a great group, such a good team, and just kind of all the pieces fell together. We had a really good transfer come in, a Hamilton kid come in from Iowa. Our best players were becoming seniors. Like everything was working out the way it needed to work out in order for us to end up winning that national championship. But I think of my 5 years before that championship run and how we never got there. And I was just thinking like how hard it is to get to a national championship. There's only 8 teams in the country that get to a national championship. And then how hard it is to win a national championship. And then I think of Carleton successfully doing it continuously for all those years. And like, I don't think people really understand how difficult that is until we won that one national championship and how hard it is for us to get back there.
Yeah.
Like it just puts everything into perspective for you. And every single year is a new challenge. Like you got to recruit, you got to build, you're losing pieces, you're gaining pieces, you got to make things fit. So it's coaching is always just this roller coaster. And it's, like I said, it's so fun, and I'm still young. So I'm maybe a little bit naive to the negative parts of it. But yeah, like people don't really understand how challenging it is to be at the top and stay at the top year after year.
Yeah. I think the one thing that jumps out to me there is you're going to go through this. I'm like in the middle of it. And some of the older guys that have been around forever, there's different phases of your career and your life that lends you to different groups. Like, as a young coach now, you have a certain type of relationship. When you're a little bit older and you've gone through some different things in your life, you're going to be more adaptable to a certain type of group. And that's part of the huge momentum and like chance required with, all the pieces came together, everyone was in the right space, the right time to make all that happen. The regularity with which Carleton does it. And I think we don't talk about it because it's still happening. And I don't think it's going to change unless something fundamentally changes in the entire landscape of Usports and how the entire league operates. Because it doesn't look like they're slowing down, and there's no reason for it. Taffy seamlessly stepped in. The resources are plentiful. The reputation is there, and the pedigree has just continued to grow year over year. So,
yeah, it is great for me, obviously being with the River Lions, to get a chance to learn from Vic as well, who's obviously a very proud Carleton alum, and just to get to hear stories and things. And that's another really good example Vic is of like learning from Dave, but not trying to be Dave, and taking what he's learned and being his own coach. So
sure.
So many things like learned for me throughout my couple summers with the River Lions. I'm going into my third summer this year with them. So it only helps. And I say this all the time, but it's like as a young coach, any opportunity that you can get to learn from another coach, from players, like there's so much to learn from the athletes and from our River Lions guys who are professionals, who are overseas. Some of them are national team players. Like there's just so much to learn if you go in with the mindset of like, I don't know everything, you don't know everything. Let's help each other get better.
For sure. So let's get into the pro world a little bit more. I think the treatment of a pro athlete versus a student athlete is different. Just right away, there's a challenge there to adjust your approach and your tact with them. And there's more distraction, right? There's more like, do guys all have skill trainers, or some guys coming in with entourages? Like, are there like, what's happening? Is there just more circus stuff going on? Like, and like, if you tell a pro guy to do something, like he's probably got a skill guy that teaches him how to do it a certain way himself, but he's just such a professional. He's just like, yeah, you're right, coach, we're doing it this way. Like,
that's actually funny that you said that, because I've been thinking about the difference in the two, like student athlete and pro. Yeah. And I was honestly going to say there's more distractions as a student athlete.
Really?
Like, you have school, you have like like all of your university friends and all these sports and people around you. And like, obviously I already said school, but school is such a big one, like at Mac, especially because all of our athletes are so academic that they're like classes first all the time. But I never thought of it that way. I mean, I guess ours is, the CBL is a little bit different just because like they're not really like traveling with an entourage yet. I guess some of the guys that are making it to the NBA are gonna get to that level. But yeah, I think like we've had such a great group of guys the past couple of years that I've been there, that they know what you're telling them or what you're trying to teach them is only going to help them improve. Right. And also, you're not going to be successful as a pro if you're constantly arguing or disagreeing or whatever with your coaches. And like, obviously disagreements are great. Like, we need to challenge each other. That's how we're going to get better. But like, if we've gone through video or we've just had a game and we're making adjustments and we're trying to add something to your game, a lot of these guys are super receptive because they know at the end of the day, like, we're only trying to help them get to the next level. And I think they see the CUBL as that, right? Like, we've seen over the past summer, a bunch of guys getting two ways or summer league contracts, and it's a great stepping stone for other places for them. But I also think it's starting to become a destination for guys who see this as like, wow, I can play professional basketball at home and it's going to be this good basketball. Like this is high level basketball. So I haven't seen the whole like distractions thing. And also like with us, they're living in Thorold, in St. Catharines.
Going on out there.
Yeah, like there's really not that much going on. We have indies, so like individual workouts in the morning, and then they go home, they eat, they nap, whatever else they do, and then we have practice at night. So whatever else is going on, I'm not involved. I don't see what's going on outside of that. But like pros, then like the guys that we do have are pros, and they, whatever's going on in their outside life, they leave it at the door when they come into the gym, which is so nice. And it's so great to work with them. And it's also nice that they don't have school to worry about on top of.
There's a little bit more responsibility for the individual when you're coaching university, and then even more so in the high school and prep ranks. Like, you know, you really got to care for the person and their sort of day to day more. The pros, they show up and do their thing. And you know, it's not like I speak from experience. You've got more pro experience than I do. But I think what you hit like nail on the head is like, there's a reason they're professional, and it's their coachability. It's their ability to take in information and execute what's being asked of them, and do that at a high level without, you know, any real heavy duty teaching required. Like, you know, we're going to do this, this, and this, and you can go out and do it. That's high IQ. And that's going to help you become a professional, along with being 6'9", athletic as hell, and, you know, can jump out the gym. Like, sure. But
sometimes
like,
that helps.
But
a big part of it too is like coming in and knowing your role. And I think a lot of times with pros, they're used to being the best player on their team in college, university, whatever it is. And then they come to the pros wherever they end up, and they might not be in that best player in that starting spot anymore. So the best pros from my experience are the ones that can accept the role that they're in and not be content with not starting or not being the best player, and like working towards that, but accepting that their job is just as important to help propel the team forward. And I think that's what makes a successful pro team. And I think there's challenges with the pro game in terms of guys playing for themselves instead of playing for the team. And when you can get a group of guys together who are all on the same page in terms of like wanting to win and not just wanting to put up numbers, that's when you have successful seasons. And I think we've been able to do that the past couple of years with the Riverlions. Obviously we haven't won a championship yet, but hopefully this summer we can put that together. But yeah, we've had some like really, really great role guys on our team who are there every single morning, working out, getting their indies in, or at practice. They're attentive. They know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And maybe they don't get that many minutes in the game, but they're like textbook professionals because they do their job every night.
Yeah. And so, you know, it's great to have you on board with the Pro Canadian Invitational, because a lot of what you just said is sage advice for a player who is finishing their university or intercollegiate career and about to try to make the jump to the pro leagues. What do you think, you know, is the best advice for a player when they're trying to earn a contract? Is it about winning and team success? Is it about standing out as an individual? I mean, like the environment that we're going to be in is going to be kind of like individual based, with the sort of positional workouts and the small sided games, 1v1, 2v2, 3v3. And then when we ultimately get to the combine games in the afternoon, I'm sure team success will have a priority. But I mean, I guess in all things, even in the CEBL, you're trying to get to the next level. It's interesting. Like, I bet you most players think that I need to have big numbers to move up, or I need to win, and only one team wins. So this is the big challenge, right?
Yeah. I think there's so many skilled athletes. There's so many good basketball players in Canada now that you can just roll the ball out. You can choose 5 guys and they can play and they can compete, and you'll find great players. But can you be great and also fit into the system that the team is trying to run? And obviously at the combine and the games, there's not going to be a whole lot of systems and things, but can you also like think, will you be able to remember a scouting report? Do you remember the game plan? those are all things that go into being a pro. It doesn't matter if you can score 20 points if you're going to let your guy score 30 on you the other way, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just like a complete package. Like, obviously you need to get yours. You need to be able to show that you can score, that you can defend, but can
Make
you
shots.
pass?
Yeah.
Can you come off a ball screen and make that like second and third read?
Yeah.
Can you D up? Like, there's so many things that scouts, coaches are going to be looking for, and it's not just can you drop 30, right? So I think guys have to go in with the mindset of like, I'm going to be the whole package. And it's not just on the court stuff too. Like, are you approachable? Do people gravitate to you? Do people want to have conversations with you? Are you open to that? Because where you go, it might not be in Canada, it might be overseas, and you might be like the popular person in town where people want your autograph and people want to get to know you. But if you can't build those relationships with the city that you're living in, the team might not want you. The team might want you there to kind of pump up the donorship and things like that, right? So you have to be that personable player as well. It can't just be about the basketball side of things.
What's your value? And what do you bring? What do you bring to the organization? What's your value? And it's different for everyone, right? Like, and I love how you mentioned the marketability of things. I think, unfortunately, in the high stakes, professional, high performance environment we're in, like, it matters what you bring to the table. Like, everybody can't do it. It's not for everybody. It's a highly specified group of people that put in an enormous amount of work to get themselves into a category of, a 1% type situation. And you have to bring value, and you have to bring it all the time. It never turns off. And, that's gotta be, your trademark. So it's going to be really fun to see the guys compete under the microscope of professional evaluation.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see, like, that's a high pressure situation, right?
Totally.
Like, these guys are university college athletes. Like, it's going to be great to see who actually rises to that challenge and who like craves that pressure. Cause there's going to be guys that do, and there's going to be guys that don't. And finding those guys that do is also part of being a good pro, right? Like, can you play in high pressure situations like that?
For sure. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, let's go a little bit less intense. Both you and I are getting fired up here. Like,
I know. I honestly
want to go there tomorrow.
Like, gotta let you go.
What about do you have a favorite road trip, coach or player? Like, something pro college kid? Like, do you have a favorite road trip in your memory bank?
Honestly, I would say my favorite road trip would be our national championship trip to Ryerson.
Yeah.
Not really a road trip in the sense, because obviously we stayed in Toronto. But it was like a home game for us, that national championship, because we were so close. They had fan buses, our alumni were there, everybody was there. And then afterwards was like obviously a big party, but the bus ride home, because we went home that night back to Mac. So we were in this like big coach bus.
Yeah.
Everyone was having a good time, right? Like, those are the things, like, just, and
champagne's flowing, like,
just champagne.
Can't feel no pain. It's so awesome.
But that feeling of like everything that we worked for, like, I don't know, it's just such an incredible feeling, and you just want to keep chasing that feeling every single season. But that road trip home from after that national championship, it was probably at like 4 or 5 a.m.
Yeah.
But just like so much fun. And again, like I said, I want to get back to another national championship, and I know every coach does, but once you have a taste of it, oh my gosh, that you want to get back there every year.
Yeah, that's so cool. And then pep talks, like, they probably don't happen as much at the pro level, maybe a little bit, but like, do you remember a time when either a coach really got into you guys and you responded, or was super silly? Or do you give pep talks? Do you think those are important? Like, what's your situation feeling on that stuff?
Okay, well, I am not a huge pep talk person. Okay. I don't like the like rah, we're the best team out here, like that stuff. It's just not me. That's not my personality.
You'll watch Coach Carter, but you're not taking it to the gym.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Like, I love it, but it's not me. And that goes with like, you got to be who you are.
Sure.
So even as an athlete, like as a player at Mac, like I wasn't the one, like the other captains or the other girls would like do that. And I would just like, yeah, like, you're part of it. But funny story pregame. So at our national championship game against Laval, like people are starting to come in, the arena is getting full. It's probably like about an hour before the game. And usually you're on court, you're getting shots up. Laval's been out there for forever, like getting shots up.
Right.
And us coaches are kind of looking around. And we're like, where are our girls? Like they're not one of them is on the court, which again is so different from me, because I would have been the one out there just like getting 500 shots up, like so ridiculous.
Yeah.
So again, like time's ticking. We're like, okay, warm-ups is about to start. We got to get them out here. So we go into the team room and like music is blasting. It's like a huge dance party going in there. This is before our national championship game. Amazing. And that was one of those things where like us coaches looked at all of us and it's just like, we just left. And there was no pregame talk. It was like, they obviously like they got it, or we are going to lose by 50, but there's nothing we can change right now.
Yeah.
And that was such a good lesson for me. Like that's what that team needed in order to be successful in that game, was like those 5 minutes where they didn't have to think about basketball. And it wasn't like, this player's going left and this player were hedging on the ball screen, and it was like they could just shut their minds off for those couple minutes. So that was probably the best pep talk I've ever been a part of, because there was none.
The great pep talk that never happened.
Yeah. So that story will probably always be one that I share.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, listen, that's what I meant when I said I always want to will our teams to victory. I think I need to put our team in a place to get ready to play. No, coach, the team needs to put themselves in a place where they're ready to play.
Yeah. Sometimes they don't need to listen to you.
Yeah.
And honestly, like 20 minutes before the game, if you're still going over the scout with them, if they don't know the scout 20 minutes before the game, they're never going to know it. So there's no point at that time.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I wish we had this conversation 10 years ago. Would have been so much more helpful to not have to go through and learn it on my own. Yeah, that's great. This has been awesome. I always try to wrap up. I mean, I'm sure we could go on for a while. We'll catch up again, the Pro Canadian Invitational weekend, sure. April 23, 24. There's a plug. Get everyone to come out and support the event. It's going to be really phenomenal. But a broad question. I really believe we need to keep focusing on growing the game. One of the things that I believe where we're at now in my job at the playground is we're helping grow the infrastructure side by creating private gyms and, putting a global spotlight on us as a nation and creating an environment with which, we can continue to put gas on our talent, which is what we have in players and coaches. And then obviously, the full surrounding elements of like, administration and marketing and video and commentating and, the whole 9 yards of what you can do to be in basketball as a living. But my question for you is, how do we grow the game in Canada? What do you think is important in that journey?
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, we keep doing that stuff and it has to be a compilation of things, right? Like now we have the playground facilities. I remember going to the States and like playing AAU, and those like 10 gym facilities, there wasn't one of those in Ontario when I was playing.
Yeah.
And it just makes the game so much more accessible for everybody.
Yeah.
And also just like having guys, young kids come out and watching games. It's like we talk about the Toronto Raptors run being so monumental for our city, for our country. Because young kids can see the Raptors, like they're playing in Toronto, like that's just so great, right? So I think there needs to be more visibility involved too, especially on the women's side. Obviously that's a big push for us and has been for years. If we could get a WNBA team in Canada, oh my gosh,
has to happen.
So great. Yeah,
has to happen.
Drake should be getting behind that.
He did something about it.
Yeah,
I'll call him up and let him know.
Yeah. I think it's just like like everybody has to work together. It has to be collective, everyone working towards one goal.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of have to try and like weed out the people that are in it for themselves, like those skilled trainers that are just in it to get their names big versus like the ones that are truly caring and investing in kids because they want to see them succeed.
Yeah.
yeah, getting everyone on the same page. And like I said, it has to start at the grassroots level. So whether that's like our university teams, like going into elementary schools and just running clinics, like
For sure.
your gym period, right? Like just getting more and more kids exposed to basketball. And you see it like in my neighborhood where kids used to be playing hockey, kids are playing basketball now.
Totally.
And that's just like, if we can just keep that going and then also provide them with the gym space to do that. And if they need shoes, like donating that stuff, like whatever is needed, the people that have the means to help and just bring someone along with you on that ride. I don't know. It's exciting. I'm sure you're excited. I'm excited to see where basketball goes in Canada, where it takes us.
Yeah.
Because it's only going up for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And so many great things you said there. And, you know, change is uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. That's when growth happens, when, you know, there's difficulty and when we challenge the norm. And, you know, I think there's got to be a combination of everything from not-for-profit and low barrier access to play to, you know, private space that if you want to go and rent a gym at 11 o'clock at night and go with your sibling or your dad or whatever and get shots up and put work in, that you can do that, which you previously couldn't do at a school. And the playground's not going to replace, you know, the school infrastructure and the city infrastructure. It's just meant to add a new element, another option to get more people playing. Increase participation is the best way for us to grow. Like you said, you know, get more people exposed to the game. And yeah, we got to get people to see the level of the student athletes that we have in Canada. Like I'm coaching prep, and I've got guys that say they're going D1 and they're going to get a scholarship, have never been to a U-Sport game.
Yeah.
Haven't even seen a game ever. So like, you know, that I think is a huge break in the opportunity. And, you know, whether that's us producing our own streaming at a high level and increasing the production level there and doing it ourselves, which we can do now, which is a crazy part of our world right now. We could actually not sit around and wait for the big networks and just do it ourselves and do it professionally and do it at a high level. And you see some of that depending on the institution you're at. But yeah, I agree with you. Everything that you said there is so spot on. And it's for everyone. And it's not, let's make the boys game better, let's make the girls game better. Let's get more people watching, playing, experiencing the game, and great things will happen. And don't be so hard on the skill trainers. Some of those guys are just trying to make a living. Like if you only make a couple $1,000 as an assistant coach, and you got to find a way to like pay the bills.
I didn't mean it as a knock. I just meant the ones that are in it for the kids. Those are the ones. Those are the good ones. The ones that are in it for the kids. And
that'll be our challenge too, because the more people we bring in, the chances are there'll be more people that take advantage of their situation and maybe don't have the right reasons. But if we continue to collaborate like we are with this Pro Canadian Invitational event and other amazing things that happen in our country, we're going to be just fine. Trademark last question.
Okay.
It's not as crazy as you think.
Okay.
I've caught you off guard a couple times, but you get a blank check. And we're constantly, one of the fun parts of my job is I get to prospect where we look for new playground locations. One of, you know, the great things about what we're doing is that we're not done. We have 6 locations across Ontario, but we have an appetite to grow across the country, across North America, even globally. So, Danielle, we are going to give you a blank check.
Okay.
Where are you putting a playground? What does it look like? How many courts are in there?
Oh my goodness.
Where would you put
Hamilton, Ontario.
Big time.
We need one. I think the closest is Burlington, right?
Yes, Burlington. Yeah, Burlington's the closest.
We could put one in like downtown Hamilton. We can get all the kids out there playing. Oh my gosh, that'd make me so happy.
Yeah, that would be really good. I think, yeah, like the Hamilton, Stony Creek, Brantford area, something that could service those groups would be really great for sure.
All right, let's make it happen.
Okay, I'm a make it happen guy. I'm gonna call you and I'm like, Danielle, I need you to rent 20 hours a week. Get the clubs. Let's get Blessed Sacrament in there.
Yes.
No more Catholic school deal for them. They got to buy some gym time now.
Honestly, that would be so awesome. But it's so great what you guys have been able to start and like just to see it kind of like explode. I remember, I think when the first one came up, and I was like, the playground, what's that? And then now all of a sudden there's 6 of them, and I'm going to scout games there. I'm watching high school kids there, right? So it's so great to see.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's happened really quickly. There's a lot we need to improve on for sure, but just like having those spaces is a huge step forward, and I'm really privileged to be a part of it. This was awesome. I'm so thankful that you were able to make time. I can't wait to watch you coach and be in your element, and be yourself. Please continue to do that. I know you will. You're a wonderful role model. You've set a really great example for people in sports, and it's been a pleasure to chat with you. So looking forward to the Pro Can.
Me too. It'll be fun.
Yeah, we will see you in 10 days.
You're not counting down though.
Every day I'm like, how many tickets have we sold? What do we got to get done? Oh my God, this is stressful. Let's get everyone going.
It'll all work out. Don't stress.
Yes. My mom used to say everything will come out in the wash.
There we go.
So we're all good. Okay. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.